Traditional Chinese medicine has over 3,000 years of keeping populations healthy by viewing food as medicine. Chinese medicine, or Zhongyi in Chinese, doesn't just mean Chinese medicine. It means medicine of the middle. And what does medicine of the middle mean? It means that we stress balance above all else. While we have encyclopedic knowledge about which foods enter which channels and which organs from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, that's not what we're going to talk about today. What's most important for the average person is going to be some general rules and guidelines that avoid extremes, that are going to ensure that you have a healthy and balanced diet, and ensure that you can, without overthinking and without overstressing, choose the right food for you on a regular basis. Traditional Chinese medicine has 6 flavors that we need to balance on each and every plate that we eat. Those flavors would be salty, sour, bitter, sweet, acrid or spicy, and even bland. If you're constantly eating takeout or constantly cooking just based on taste, you're going to be most likely dominating your diet with the salty and or sweet category of foods. We need to balance those out by having adequate amounts of sour, having adequate amounts of acrid or spicy, by having adequate amounts of bitter foods occasionally, and even having bland food as well. If we're always eating out, always kind of living in excess, we really need to balance out some of that excess with something that's very easy for our spleen, stomach, and digestive system to help ourselves to nourish ourselves, to be able to easily process this food once it hits the digestive tract. And that is why we say that bland food is good for the stomach and leaches out the Chinese concept of dampness. What is dampness in the body? It's simply just the gunk that we take in. It's the reason why people start to gain weight as their digestive system becomes taxed with excess takeout, with overstress, and with other lifestyle factors that I am sure that you have seen maybe in some of the senior colleagues in your office. Rule number 2 is going to be balancing the colors on your plate. And I don't mean by adding food dye. What do we mean by balancing the colors? It is because each color corresponds with a specific organ system or meridian system within traditional Chinese medicine. You don't need to know these correlations, but we can take, for example, something of the darker color, like a blueberry or a black bean, and see how much antioxidant content is contained within these foods, and say that that's almost a separate food category that we need to make sure we are hitting on a regular basis. We can take the green color that would correspond to the liver. We don't need to know which organ system it corresponds to, but knowing that we need leafy greens and other green vegetables in our diet that are really high in chlorophyll and really high in other essential nutrients is a wonderful starting point where we don't have to think too hard about it. We just know we need that color on our plate throughout the week. Taking, for example, red, the color of fire, we can start to look at things like steak or look at things like beets and see how those affect the bloodstream at providing essential nutrients such as iron and B vitamins. Then we can go and see the yellow color, for example, a sweet potato, or ginger would be an incredible example of this as well. Things that directly support the earth and the digestive system. Likewise, if you can include something like white rice, or perhaps a little more healthy, a daikon radish into your diet here and there, you're going to benefit the metal and the lungs. Balancing the colors on your plate is something incredibly easy and simple and elementary, but it's a very effective tool to make sure that you're eating a balanced diet. Rule number 3 is going to be balancing wet and dry foods. When I lived in China, this was typically done at every meal. If there was something dry, like a type of bread or a steamed bun or something like that, there was something wet, like a soup, to go along with it. And why is that? It's because the food that you eat has a direct relationship on the hydration that you're going to experience, especially at a deeper cellular level. It is because the food you eat, and not just the fluid intake you consume, is going to bring hydration into your body or tend to dehydrate you. And so if we only eat a diet that is consisting of roasted foods, things cooked quickly, fried, roasted in the oven, breads, drying things, we're going to end up dehydrating some of our tissues. And so that's going to have systemic health consequences. that we could get into specifically, but again, that's not really the focus right here. The focus is to find balance. Likewise, we have things such as soups or porridges that we really need to include in our diet to raise the water content that we're actually receiving. It's also a form, most of these foods are forms of cooking for longer periods of time, which are going to restore balance for some of the things that we might find easier when we're on the go, like a sandwich. They're usually also more warm as opposed to maybe we're eating fried food after it's already been cold, providing some digestive fire to our stomach. You can test this out for yourself the next time you're traveling and eating basically fast food, often colder food. Start to watch your energy levels. Start to watch even your bowel movements and see how they change in response to the food that you're coming in. The bowel movements, while a little bit explicit for some people's comfort level, are a way that we can actually see how much of our food is our digestive system taking in and absorbing and transforming, as opposed to simply leaving nutrients in the digestive tract and flushing them out. Eating at regular meal times is going to be rule number 4. It has become so normalized in certain Western countries to skip meals or delay meals until very late at night, or to eat lunches incredibly late in the afternoon, or to put your breakfast at 10:30 while you are working on some other project, that we often forget that that's actually a root of your body's ability to expect food coming in. And likewise, the body will actually respond in sort of a haphazard way to the food that's coming in when we are not able to expect it and live on a daily circadian rhythm. Our ancestors functioned on more or less a clock. We did things at certain times of day because we only had the sun available for a light source. And so we have to restore and reclaim that. Maybe we don't have time to sit down and eat our favorite meal for lunch, but just knowing that that's a factor in our digestion, a factor in our health, and will have a direct impact on our energy levels, you can start to look at that as another factor in eating a balanced diet, and looking at that as a factor just about as important as what you are eating. To add on to rule number 4, we also have the principle of eating warm. Eating warm and eating cooked foods is an incredibly important step for our digestive system because our food is hitting our digestive tract somewhat pre-digested. When we are looking for a quick way to get vegetables, for example, often the last thing our body is craving is a salad, not because there aren't nutrients in the salad or in the raw vegetables, but because those will give us a tax. We have to use energy to consume them, and sometimes that energy we're using to consume them is worth more than the energy that we're actually getting from them. Rule number 5 is adding herbs to our food. We can think about ginger, turmeric, thyme, cilantro, all these other things, the things we can add to our food to help us to digest it, to add anti-inflammatory processes to our diet. Chinese medicine traditionally adds foods that have very specific energetics in order to affect specific outcomes in our diet. But for the average person, just knowing to look for food options that have these herbal qualities in a natural form is a great start. And the second thing I'll say is, if you can find some things with ginger, ginger is probably the number 1 herb that is a food grade product that you're going to find all over the place that can support your digestion without you having to hunt for some ingredient that may not be available in every store and that is often available on takeout menus. So although we could continue down the rabbit hole of some specific information about traditional Chinese medicine's relationship to food, the basics, the places we should start before we go anywhere else and make sure we're actually doing on a regular basis. These rules of balancing the flavors, balancing the colors, balancing wet and dry, eating warm and cooked food at regular times, and even just using herbs in our food, these things will put us immediately into a much better state of health.